Hey guys, Hastings here, and welcome to the second episode of my newest series, which is the unlikely track cars. And in today's episode, we are going to be using this, the Lexus ISF. It starts out as low B class, and I think you'll probably agree that it's not exactly got racing pedigree. Let's put it that way. So let's jump straight into the build and see what we have to do with this car. As per usual in this series, there are some certain rules to follow. We have to have the full race roll cage, because racing is all about that safety. And yeah, so that should be nice and important. We've also got to have the race gearbox, because we do want to have sort of a level playing field in terms of power output and gear changes and stuff. The race tyres, again, they've got to maximise their grip, and I guess that also comes into safety as well, sort of less likely to slide around all over the place and end up crashing. And finally, you've got to have that race spec aerodynamics, because the racing people are always changing what front aero and rear wings and stuff that you have to use. And as per usual, the Forza spec aero, which is the race aero we use, looks suitably kind of ridiculous. Although the rear wing, I don't think it looks quite as bad on this car as it does on some, but it still looks slightly ridiculous. So that gives us quite a lot of PI left to play around with. We're still not even at B class, at the top of B class, so we've got quite a lot to play with. So I'm thinking we're going to max out the handling on this car. It's always a good idea to start with that, especially things like the brakes. It only puts it up 2 PI, but according to Forza's stats, which are only a rough representation, it puts it up by 2 points, which is, I guess, decent. I don't really know, to be honest. Forza's stats are never particularly accurate. But yeah, we'll lower the suspension and stick on the anti-roll bars for that extra rigidity. I'm surprised I managed to get that out pronunciation first time, and it's not normally the type of word that I trip over. And finally, this should give us a nice big boost. How much do we currently weigh? We currently weigh 3,800 pounds. How much are we going to get off? I'm going to take down 737 pounds and shoot us up 50 PI with the racing weight reduction. That should give us a nice boost in all areas of the car. Okay, so now we've finished that, I'm thinking, how are the stats doing on the car? Shall we have a look at the drivetrain? We'll stick on the race diff, just because it never actually makes any difference. And I'm thinking, looking at those stats, we could probably go for a bit more power. It's lacking slightly on the top speed in relative to others in this class. And the handling seems like, I think 5.4. I think that's about average for A-class cars. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. But it doesn't seem too bad, so I think we'll go straight in and stick a bit more power in. We've done all the handling upgrades. I'm just thinking, maybe if we are going to go straight for power, maybe first we should upgrade the rear tyre widths, so it's easier to put the power down. Although 285s aren't massive. I guess they must be relatively close to that stock, but often with like the Corvettes and the Audi, I can't remember what we got in the Audis, but on the big Corvettes and stuff, you often get sort of 325s. So 285s aren't too bad. I'd like maybe a little bit bigger. Seeing how little that we did that, we might as well stick the front tyre widths up. Only 255s on the front, which is, again, I guess that's about average. You don't really expect massive tyres from these cars that not exactly designed for racing around the track. I think we've still got a relatively heavy car. I don't think we're quite as heavy as the 2 cars we've been previously, but the Lamborghini and the Aventador and the Audi RS7 are both very heavy cars. So if we can make this as light as possible, we might be in for a good shout here. So if I go for all the power parts that also take off weight, that might be my best bet. I think the air filter does as well, am I right? Yeah, air filter. See that stack going green. Takes off, ooh, £6. Oh, I've accidentally gone back out of the engine section. What else takes off a bit of power? Does this takes off? Ooh, £1 with the race valves. And I think we will put in, what else have we got? Stick in the displacement. Does that make it lighter? No, it doesn't. Well, it does put the displacement up to 5.5 litres. Nice increase in engine size there. We're going to end up with quite a lot of power in this car. I don't know if the pistons make the car any lighter at all. Yeah, another £2 off. Closing in on 500 horsepower now, which I guess is about average really for these sort of A-class cars. Okay, we're looking at that. That pushes up the top speed quite a lot. It doesn't actually make the car any lighter. But that takes it up to 701 PI. Considering that speed boost, I'm going to stick that on, and then I'm going to go and take off something else to make it back down to the 700 mark that we're looking for. And I think if I take one of the drive line off, there we go. We add on all at 13.8 pounds. It's going to make us a little bit heavier, but it's not too bad. So that is the build done. As per usual in this series, there won't be any tuning involved, which is very beneficial because I'd probably end up ruining the cars anyway. I'm really not a very good tuner. So that's the car built. I will join you on track very shortly. See you then. Coming on to the first flying lap with this Lexus. I've kind of got a bit of housekeeping to do from the first episode. I didn't actually mention one quite important thing, and that's that each car will get 5 flying laps to set a lap time around this circuit, which is the same as how Mods On works. There'll be one warm-up lap, which will be from a standing start, and then I get 5 flying laps to see how the car can do. And this car actually managed pretty well. It was really rather nice to drive, something I wasn't particularly expecting. It was very nice over the curbs, which is one very good, very good aspect to have around this track, because there are a few places, especially through the first sector, around that horrible kink at the top of the hill, where you can really gain a lot of time by managing to ride the curbs without getting out of shape. Another very important aspect to consider is the top speed of the car. It's got a very long, twisty straight, so it works well with, or the power should have to work well with the downforce and the grip to get to a decent top speed. And this is actually the slowest car we've had in terms of top speed so far, but not by a huge amount. The Audi, which was ridiculously powerful, did like 180 miles an hour. The benchmark setting Lamborghini did about 175, and this was just shy of that. I was getting up to about 172, 173 just before braking, although it's not the easiest place to check what speed you're doing. Because it's downhill and off-cambered and just round a corner, you kind of don't really want to be looking at the speed of the car that you're doing on the display. You want to be looking at your braking point and picking that, and so you can actually make the corner. But this car did handle it very well. I did say in the last video there's a certain number of points on the track where you will gain or lose time significantly. So there are the key points on the track that I want to talk about in general throughout this series, and I'll try and talk about them when the car is going round them. I was still talking about the straight, like last lap, even though it's very nearly back at the straight again, but I'll try and stick to where the car is on track and talk about that bit. The brakes on this car were actually, well, according to Forza, they were very good. They seemed fine, but they didn't seem that good. The Forza statistics in comparison to Audi were it was better handling and braking, pretty much the same in acceleration and launch, and they had a slower top speed, which it did. But as you know, Forza statistics aren't always great. The downforce that this car generated was very good. Through all the high-speed corners, it was very stable. And you can see in this shot here, I was sticking right to the right-hand side of the track so I can get a good run with a left-hander, something which the Audi really struggled with, but the Lamborghini with its four-wheel drive system with so much grip, it was absolutely fine through that. Over the crests, like that one there, the back end would tend to go slightly light, but it was nowhere near as bad as the Audi from last time out. I guess it's because it's got, I think it's about 200 less horsepower, so there isn't quite as much power to spin up the wheels when the traction slightly breaks. And in general, this car had more grip. I wasn't getting quite so sideways quite so often. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still got a lot of power. If I'm being a complete arse with the throttle, it's very easy to get it very sideways. But racing it round a track and trying to get round quickly, it wasn't too bad. You can see me getting sideways there. I've got a bit of out of shape into the entry of the corner, but it wasn't so powerful I couldn't hold it, or I didn't spin it at all, and it was just generally quite nice to drive in that respect. And it did, I don't know, its weakest point was probably going through the slow corners. I don't really know how to describe it, but it just felt like it was lacking a bit of oomph maybe on the exit. It was brilliant at carrying speed, but I guess building up to it, a bit more horsepower would have been nice, but then you would have lost from other aspects of the car. So I guess it's a good way off in that respect. Going around the final section now, so I'll start to talk about the final corner. I did mention in the last episode that it can be flat out if you've got a good enough car and a good enough line. I'm not sure if it actually will be in A-Class. This car was very quick around the final corner. I was getting away with just a little lift. But this was so much nicer to handle than the Audi. I think it's going to be one of the more handling orientated cars in this series, although I haven't got a huge amount to compare to at the moment. I think in the likes of the really good typical A-Class races like the Caterham 7 or the KTM Crossbow, probably flat out in those types of cars. In these sort of unlikely track cars, which will tend to be sort of saloon cars, like the Audi, the BMW M5 might make an appearance, cars like that, sort of big ungainly cars. So I don't think we're going to be able to get flat out, but this definitely handled that last corner far better than the Audi did. And in general, it just handled the corners a lot better. The Audi did make up a lot of time down the straight. It was nearly 10 miles an hour faster. So that is to be expected. I'm trying to think if there are any other areas of the track that I mentioned in the last episode that will gain or lose a significant amount. It was very nice going through this chicane. It's called S-bend. I'm not exactly what you'd call this corner. It's kind of a chicane, but it's kind of a really long chicane. It's quite easy to get wrong, as you can see there. Just braking a little bit too late and compromising your line into the second part of it. Around the final corner, as I said, very nice. It was quite decent on the curbs. As you saw there, I was running over the curbs onto dirt a bit. It was quite nice through there. It dealt with the sort of changes in gradient pretty well. It lost a little bit of traction over the really bumpy bits, but that's to be expected, and it was nowhere near as bad as last week's car. It was very responsive. I wasn't, like, through the first section, it's a very sort of left-right, you've got to be in the right place at the right time. It's a very flowing section. And in some cars, if you get sort of on the wrong line, you've compromised yourself in the entire first section. This car was very good at, oh, I'm slightly off, so I'll just correct it a bit and it'll get back online, and you can just maintain and lose far less time than you would in some cars. And I think that is pretty much all I need to say about this car. So I might as well now move on to the lap times. The very first flying lap that I did with this car was very quick, let's put it that way. And I spent pretty much the rest of the time chasing that, the rest of my laps chasing that time. And I wasn't getting particularly close. I was consistently sort of a few tenths off. And I was like, oh, okay, this car's pretty consistent, but it's quite annoying that I can't go faster than my very first lap. So it just goes to show this car was very easy to drive, just jumping straight in. And then but with a bit of practice, you would have thought you'd get it. And as I clipped the wall there, that was actually to come across the line and finish my final lap, which actually did manage to go faster. I managed a 1 minute 27.0, which puts it at the top of the table. And that was the end of the flying laps, I believe. I'm not actually sure what's going to happen on screen now, so I'm going to wrap it up with I'm going to go for a nice little drift. And yes, I accidentally set this on too many laps. I'm just going to stop the car here and pause on this screen while I talk to you about the times. This car did and I will get round to it now, a 1 minute 27.059, which puts it to the top of our leaderboard by quite a margin. We're going 8 tenths or so faster than the Lamborghini. So thank you very much for watching. If you've got any suggestions of cars you would like to see in the future, leave them down in the comments below. Hit that like button if you did, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you for the next one. So until then, Hastings out. Goodbye.